Star Trek just gave us the R-rated Trek film Quentin Tarantino has always wanted to direct. For years, fans have wondered what Quentin Tarantino's Star Trek would look like. Ever since the legendary filmmaker, known for his razor-sharp dialogue, unapologetic violence, and love of pulp cinema, was rumored to be working on a Star Trek project back in 2017, Trekkies and cinephiles alike have been tantalized by the possibility. Imagine a universe where Captain Kirk drops F-bombs as freely as photon torpedoes, Spock quotes 20th century crime films, and Klingons bleed in glorious slow motion to a retro soundtrack. It sounded absurd and yet undeniably fascinating. That dream never came to pass. Tarantino ultimately walked away, and Paramount returned to safer, PG-13 waters. But now, with Star Trek, Section 31, a Michelle Yeoh-led film that just dropped on Paramount+, the franchise has delivered something astonishing, a gritty, violent, and morally gray Star Trek story that feels, more than anything else, like the R-rated Tarantino Trek we never got. It's not just the blood, the language, or the espionage. It's the attitude. Section 31 oozes the same rebellious, cinematic swagger that Tarantino would have brought to the Federation's pristine corridors. And by doing so, it redefines what Star Trek can be in the modern age. The Tarantino Trek that almost was. Before we dive into Section 31, it's worth remembering just how close Tarantino came to helming his own Star Trek movie. Around 2017, he reportedly pitched a story idea to J.J. Abrams, who loved it enough to get Paramount on board. The concept was said to be inspired by the original series episode A Piece of the Action, where Kirk and Spock beam down to a planet that models itself after 1920s Chicago gangsters. Tarantino envisioned an adult-rated, violent, profanity-laced gangster Star Trek film that paid homage to his cinematic heroes and explored moral corruption under the utopian Federation's surface. It sounded wild. It also sounded fresh, something Star Trek desperately needed after Star Trek Beyond failed to light up the box office. But Paramount hesitated. Could Star Trek, the franchise built on hope and idealism, survive Tarantino's blood-splattered lens? Would an R-rated version alienate the core audience? In the end, Tarantino stepped back, saying he was happy to let someone else direct it. The idea faded into myth, and the franchise pivoted to smaller screen storytelling with Discovery, Picard, and Strange New Worlds. Until now, Section 31 takes Trek where it's never gone before. Michelle Yeoh's long-awaited return as Philippa Georgiou in Star Trek, Section 31 is a revelation. From the first few minutes, it's clear this isn't your father's Star Trek. The tone is darker, the action more visceral, and the moral compass completely shattered. Georgiou, exiled from the Mirror Universe, now a rogue agent for the Federation's Secret Intelligence Division, embarks on a mission that blurs every ethical line the franchise has ever drawn. Torture, blackmail, betrayal, nothing is off limits. And while previous Star Trek entries have hinted at the shadowy side of Starfleet, Deep Space Nine flirted with it beautifully through characters like Sloan and Bashir, Section 31 plunges headfirst into the darkness. The result? A film that feels like Pulp Fiction meets The Wrath of Khan. It's stylish, vicious, and surprisingly thoughtful, offering the kind of moral ambiguity Tarantino himself would salivate over. Georgiou herself is pure Tarantino. A complex anti-hero who quotes Federation principles even as she breaks them, a woman of violence with her own twisted sense of honor. She's like Beatrix Kiddo in a Starfleet uniform, lethal, unrepentant, yet strangely relatable. Blood, brutality, and Federation bureaucracy. What truly sets Section 31 apart is its willingness to embrace the messy, human side of the Star Trek mythos. Gone are the sanitized ship corridors and clean, bloodless phaser blasts. When people get shot here, they bleed. When ships explode, the camera doesn't cut away, it lingers. And that's where the Tarantino influence becomes almost uncanny. The film's action sequences are choreographed with a kinetic, almost poetic brutality. One early scene, a close-quarters knife fight aboard a derelict Klingon vessel, is shot with long takes, handheld grit, and a pulsing retro track that wouldn't feel out of place in Reservoir Dogs. Even the dialogue has that Tarantino-esque rhythm, fast, irreverent, and full of dark humor. At one point, Georgiou and a morally conflicted Starfleet admiral debate the ethics of assassination over Romulan ale, their banter sharp enough to draw blood. It's as if Star Trek finally loosened its collar and started having fun again. This isn't to say the film abandons Star Trek's ideals entirely. Underneath the violence and cynicism lies a biting commentary about power, secrecy, and moral compromise, themes that have always haunted the Federation's pristine image. But Section 31 doesn't preach. It bleeds for its ideals, showing what happens when utopia gets its hands dirty to stay that way. Tarantino's spirit lives on. It's almost poetic that Section 31, a film about moral compromise and shadowy government ops, ends up being the one to channel Tarantino's cinematic rebellion. Tarantino's films have always thrived on contradiction, characters who are both righteous and repulsive, scenes that are both violent and beautiful. Section 31 mirrors that energy perfectly. The Federation has always been portrayed as a bastion of progress, but here we see the underbelly, a bureaucracy willing to commit atrocities in the name of peace. That duality feels ripped straight from Tarantino's playbook. Think of Inglourious Basterds, where vengeance masquerades as justice, or Django Unchained, where freedom and brutality coexist in every frame. In Section 31, the Federation's quest for stability becomes its own kind of madness, and Giorgio, ever the pragmatist, is the only one honest enough to admit it. Even the film's structure nods to Tarantino's signature nonlinear storytelling. Flashbacks, fragmented timelines, and morally inverted scenes give the story a layered complexity rarely seen in Star Trek films. It's cinematic, risky, and unashamedly bold. Michelle Yeoh is the perfect Tarantino heroine. If Tarantino had ever made his Star Trek, he would have needed a star who could match his energy, someone who could deliver an impassioned monologue one moment and break a man's arm the next. Michelle Yeoh is that actor. Her Giorgio is equal parts philosopher and assassin, a woman haunted by her past yet unable to escape it. In Section 31, Yeoh brings a feral intensity to every scene. Her smirks cut deeper than knives, and her rare moments of vulnerability feel earned, not scripted. You can almost imagine Tarantino directing her, letting her chew through dialogue like Uma Thurman in Kill Bill. In fact, Section 31 often feels like Kill Bill in space, a revenge saga wrapped in Federation colors. Giorgio's mission isn't just about espionage or politics. It's about self-redemption through violence. She's seeking penance for her mirror universe sins, one broken Federation rule at a time. A new era of Star Trek storytelling. What's most exciting about Section 31 isn't just how different it feels, it's how natural it feels. The Star Trek universe is vast, and for decades it's been defined by optimism and moral clarity. But in recent years, fans have grown hungry for complexity, for stories that challenge the Federation's perfection instead of idolizing it. Shows like Deep Space Nine, Picard, and Discovery began that evolution. Section 31 completes it. It proves that Star Trek can be morally complex, stylistically daring, and even R-rated without betraying its core. After all, Roddenberry's vision was never about being clean. It was about exploring what it means to be human. And humans are messy. By embracing that messiness, Section 31 breathes new life into the franchise. It opens the door for future films that dare to break the mold, whether they lean into espionage, noir, or even outright horror. The possibilities are limitless when Star Trek stops trying to be squeaky clean and starts embracing cinematic risk again. So, did we just get Tarantino